Yes, I do.
Hit it.
Well, just kidding.
Hit it.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Listen, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
Oh, Copper used to crack up because it cracks me up every single time. I don't know why that commercial's always just totally cracked me up. But it's hump day. It is the middle of the week, folks. It is we are halfway there. The weekend is upon us before you know it. Listen, we got a full show. We got good stuff laid on. Get the triple dipper sound effect there ready, bud. So the at 3:30, one of my favorite things we do every single week is called the Grand Council. So the Grand Council will be today, and we're going to have a substitute for our brother Jeff Poor. So Tim Melton out of Birmingham is going to be also coming on, along with Dale Jackson from WVNN up in Huntsville. The three of us will opine. We will ask each other questions. We'll see how it goes. But the bottom line is we don't always even know what the questions are. We don't always even agree on the outcomes, but we always love each other when it's done. So the Grand Council is today at 3:30. Conservatism on parade, I would say. All right, and then we got a full show with a triple dipper, so go ahead and hit that.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the triple dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know for today. We're running the show on these. Number 1, when government goes woke. That's what I'm calling it. When government goes woke. You had to have seen it. If you haven't seen it, you're going to hear it in a minute, though. You had to have seen Kamala Harris announce her pronouns, the fact that she is a woman, and that she was wearing a blue suit at the table. Whatever. Anyway, the bottom line is, number 1 on the triple dipper, when government goes woke. And, oh, by the way, sometimes it's harmless and goofy. Sometimes it ain't. Number 2, you ready? Get a little more serious going into foreign policy here. Number 2 on the triple dipper, China rising. So there's that one. China rising. Near-peer adversary, China. Our biggest competitor on the world stage, China. We're looking at China rising right now. What does this mean? We're going to examine it in great detail, have some insights from General Jack Keane. But yeah, China rising is number 2 on the triple dipper. Number 3 on the triple dipper, I'm just calling it border. What border? Border? Do we have a border? Is there a border left? Can anyone find me the border, please? Because right now, it doesn't seem like we even have one. So number 3 on the triple dipper, border, what border? All right, well, you know the deal. Every time we start the show, after I get out the triple dipper, I go into my opening monologue. So let me just say this. This show has always been about educating, enlightening, empowering, and entertaining our listeners on truths about conservatism. The goal is now and will remain for Rightside Radio to be a voice for so many out there who look at the world just going mad around them, but to also point out to them that the principles and values that we all hold dear, those are still allowed to stand no matter what the mob might say. And let's face it, I don't have any illusions that there will always be complete agreement on the issues. The left and the right don't see eye to eye. That's a fact of life. But I also know that we as conservatives, we have to be willing to lead. There's an old saying that says, if everyone always agrees, then no one's leading. Similar to that, I remember when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister of England, she said once that true consensus is the absence of leadership. She was right. She nailed it. We won't always agree, but we also won't bow down. And that's exactly what progressives want. They want us to bow down. They want us to kowtow. They want us to make ourselves subservient and to be apologetic for what? For what, actually? What should we bow down and be apologizing for? For being different? For behaving differently? For daring to think differently? Literally, the left so often uses subservience as the goal. They demand it. And yet the truth is, they will never be satisfied with having you on your knees. Never. It's never enough. I mean, we saw it happen in real time. Remember the Summer of Love? The summer of 2020, when largely peaceful protests burned down whole city blocks, people died and lives were destroyed in the name of what exactly? The mob yelled for contrition. They demanded that leadership kneel with them in solidarity. How many times did we see the videos of city leaders and even police leadership in various cities stepping outside their respective offices and agreeing to kneel before the mob to show their alleged solidarity? And I don't think it was just, out there elsewhere. It happened right here in good old red state Alabama. I know of one county sheriff who knelt with the protesters and then ordered his deputies to kneel as well. City streets were renamed as BLM Plaza and the like. And the streets still caught fire and the buildings still burned because when you kneel to the mob is never satisfied. We see it now in the never-ending rush to announce the appropriate pronouns by which someone demands to be identified. Regardless of whether it makes sense or is grammatically correct, we must adhere to the pronoun police dogma that misgendering someone is a threat and that we are homophobic if we simply remind them that men cannot get pregnant. By the way, they can't. That non-binary is not real. By the way, it's not. And that an individual cannot be a they, no matter how stridently the pronoun is affirmed by the mob. I'm told that right here in Alabama, one of our major utility companies is requiring the use of pronouns at all staff meetings. That's not okay. That is pandering, that is kneeling, and that is also unacceptable in my view. A few years back, I got to tell you, I read a book, and it was very impactful. It was a true story of a group of people who decided that kneeling was not an option. The book was titled Defiance, and the movie by the same name was made in 2008, and it starred Daniel Craig. It told the true story, of the Bielski brothers, 4 Jewish brothers who in 1941 had their parents murdered by Nazis. Society capitulated to the Nazi dogma that demanded that Jews kneel in subservience. The Bielskis were having none of it. They escaped to a thick, deep forest where the Nazis did not like to go, and there they began taking in more and more Jewish survivors. The Bielskis formed what became known as the Bielski partisans. They fought back. They became such a thorn in the side of the Nazis that they became special targets themselves, but they fought, and they dodged capture, and they rescued other Jews, and they fought some more, because they knew that if they knelt before the mob, that it would never be enough. There was no good outcome to capitulation. There was no future for who they were and what they believed if they gave in and gave up. Kneeling is never enough for the mob. The book, Defiance, goes on to talk about the hardships they faced as they continued to live in the wilderness and forage and hunt for supplies and fight for their right to live. There were numerous battles and attempted assaults on the forest hideaways, sometimes resulting in having to move everyone and everything to new locations. The Bielski partisans, man, they disabled German trains, they blew up rail beds, they destroyed bridges, they facilitated the escape of Jews from the captive ghettos where the Nazis had fenced them in before going to concentration camps. In the end, the Bielskis and their partisans spent almost 4 years fighting to avoid kneeling in a forest. And they built themselves in that forest a hospital, a nursery, a school, and they rescued over 1,200 Jews. 3 of the brothers survived the war, and they immigrated to the United States, and they formed a trucking company of their own in New York City. They never sought recognition for what they did. It's estimated now that the descendants of the people they saved number in the tens of thousands. You see, it's amazing what can happen when good people choose not to kneel to the mob. So here's the thing. You don't have to kneel. Kneeling is a choice. Subservience is a mindset, and they will be mad, just know it. The mob does not like it when kneeling is resisted. If you don't use their pronouns or call them by their new names or rally with them against their alleged grievances with the perceptions of American society, they may react. They may try to dox your business or call you names because they're so tolerant. More than likely, though, what will happen is they will complain that you've just triggered their overly sensitive sensibilities, and they'll shriek in their TikTok videos that cruelty exists in the form of privileged people like you and I who refuse to join their enlightened crusades. I tell you what, tell them to pound sand. And remind them what that great philosopher of freedom and liberty said. That wise old sage known as Mark Twain. Stay with me, it's good. A quote that was actually used later by Captain America in the comics. Here's the quote. Twain said this. He said, quote, "Each of you, for himself or herself, by himself or herself, and on his or her own responsibility, must speak. It is a solemn and weighty responsibility and not lightly to be flung aside at the bullying of pulpit, press, government, or politician. Each must decide for himself or herself alone what is right and what is wrong, which course is patriotic and which isn't. You cannot shirk this and be a man. To decide against your convictions is to be unqualified and an inexcusable traitor. It is traitorous both against yourself and your country. So let men label you as they may. If you alone of all the nation decide one way, and that way may be the right way by your convictions, you have done your duty by yourself and by your country. Hold up your head, for you've done nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't matter what the press says. It doesn't matter what the politicians or the mob say. It doesn't matter if the whole country decides that something is wrong and something right. Republics are founded on one principle above all else, the requirement that we stand up for what we believe in, no matter the odds or the consequences. So when the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth, and you tell the whole world, no, you move. So I'm just saying, friends, hear me now. Don't you bend that knee. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. All right, Boomer, take us to the break, my brother. I got a little fired up on this one. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm sick of seeing people kneel down with protesters and then see the streets burn anyway. What the heck? I mean, what good does it do us to capitulate if capitulation just means we have to capitulate more later? Forget capitulation. Don't take that knee. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Conservative and just plain right. So, wow. Listen, breaking news right now. Let me just go ahead and just jump on the breaking news real quick. So, first of all, um, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell did come out and do a press conference just a little while ago, like within the last hour, I believe. The Fed has determined to go ahead and hike the interest rates again. They're going up another 3/4 of a point. You know, there was some concern they might go as high as a point altogether, but yeah, 0.75. Fed hikes the interest rate. Inflation, of course, has been soaring. I don't know. We're going to hear the new report sometime soon about where inflation is. It was 9.1% last we heard. Well, this is an attempt by the Fed to try and stifle inflation by basically stymieing some consumer spending. And by doing that, they're having to raise interest rates. The hope is that they don't get carried away, raise the rate to such a degree that it creates a more of a burden on society than a help. So, yeah, if you are out there looking to buy a house or to do something that had an interest rate attached to it, I hope you're locked in because rates are going up as we speak. I mean, I can remember, Boomer, I know you did real estate some, but I can remember just 6 months ago, I was as an attorney, I was closing loans with people coming in the twos.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just my family and I, we were crazy, and God's been doing some crazy stuff in our lives. But we actually bought a house about actually it was a year ago in August, and we had just got it right above, I mean, barely above 3. And now, after we sold in Tennessee and here, I'm like, oh my word, I better go buy a house today because this is gonna kill me.
That's the thing. I think people are trying to lock their rates immediately before they actually hit the market. But yeah, I mean, golly, yeah, I think the lowest one I saw, and of course they had to, and this is the way they do it. They had to buy some points basically, but I think I saw someone come in at 2.45. I mean, that's amazing. That's like, just about getting it interest free at that point. But not no mo. We're going to be seeing them in the 4s and up to 5s, and and if you're a high risk loan, you're going to have more trouble. So yep, the Fed is raising the rate another 0.75. Here's the other breaking story that just happened right as we were about to go on the air. The Biden administration, Secretary of State Antony Blinken gave one of his deer in the headlights press conferences. He always looks lost. Every time I see him do a press conference, he looks like he hates his job. I mean, like, okay, here I am. Let me talk to you. That's the way he comes across. It's like, okay, you are so inspiring, dude, Secretary of State. I hope that the foreign nations that have to deal with you don't see you the same way we're seeing you on the camera. Anyway, the White House has made a trade deal to get 2 Americans who have been jailed over there in Russia back. They're offering to trade a Russian arms dealer who we've had in prison for a while for WNBA star Brittany Griner and the other guy, Timothy Whalen, who has been in prison there. I'm sorry, Paul Whalen. Who has been there for quite a while. So this is a breaking story, still to be developed. I don't know what else may be attached to this, what other stringers there are, but here we are negotiating with Russia in the midst of, by the way, providing arms for a war against Russia, in the midst of providing sanctions that are, designed to help cripple Russia's economy. And oh, by the way, we're hoping that they'll trade with us so we can get some Americans back that shouldn't have been jailed in the first place, but they are. Anyway, there's that. 2 pieces of breaking news. We keep track of them. If things break while we're on the air, we'll just tell you about it. It's what we do here at Rightside Radio. By the way, we've gotten, it seems to be going pretty well. People are getting used to the fact that we have a new phone number. I spent a year on the air now with a different phone number, but once we syndicated the show and we're broadcasting into multiple stations across the state, well, we built our own studio. We basically produce the entire show ourselves, and then we send it out to the stations. But we also, by doing that, we have to have our own phone number. So we got our own, it's kind of cool, really, our own toll-free number, 833-687-4448. You want to call the show, that's the number, 833-687-4448. Here's how you remember it better, 833-68-RIGHT. Oh, yeah, 833-68-RIGHT. The underlying secret for why 6'8", I was asked that. Phil, what Where'd the 6-8 come from? Well, I had to have some digits on there. It didn't fit to have, right side or something. So it's 833. I had a 68 Mustang in high school. Thank you very much. And we are right. So 833-68-RIGHT, that's the number. You want to call in today, we'll be glad to take those calls, as always. I love this audience, man. Boomer, you're getting used to the audience. I hope you're gathering what a cool batch of people we have. A bunch of right side ruffians that are out there with good opinions. I mean,
They're awesome.
I mean, just daily, right?
Daily, every time that we get a call in and stuff, and I get to talk to them before we put on the air, they're amazing.
Yeah, they are. There's some of them that I swear when they call in, I'm thinking, yep, you could host the show. But anyway, that's that. Hey, a lot of stuff happening on that podcast. By the way, I mean that website we've got, rightsideradio.org. The podcast just spiked yesterday. So thank you to all of you who recognize that we not only broadcast live 2 to 5 every single day, but we take the show, we break it down into manageable segments, and we put it out there in every form of podcasting known to man. You can find it on rightsideradio.org. And yeah, yesterday, like over 500 or something downloads in one day. So we literally passed, we're at what, 65,300 downloads now? Sweet. And then there's always the fact, too, that we are now live streaming the show. I am actually having to dress for video instead of dressing for radio. But that's okay. All right, folks, taking a break. We're going to come right back. Number 1 of the Triple Dipper, When Government Goes Woke. I'll tell you all about it. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Rightside Radio. We are back. Phil Williams here in the Rightside studio, covering all of North Alabama. Solid conservative, just plain right. So, hey, listen, I gave that monologue a moment ago, and no fooling. I am sick to death of seeing people kowtow to the demands of liberal progressives, like, you must kneel. I mean, we saw some, by the way, there were some awful videos of, you will kneel and denounce your white privilege. Shut up. But this, it gets worse when you realize it's not just that it's happening, but that people are actually giving into it. And it gets worse even when government that is supposed to represent us, government that is supposed to act in our best interest, that government goes woke. Like, in an effort to be inclusive, we've decided to yield to the less than 1% of the nation that screams on TikTok. That's where we are right now. So you may have heard yesterday about Kamala Harris. I'll be honest with you, I'm really not sure what the job description of vice president is anymore. I heard one time when John McCain was running for president, he was asked by Jay Leno. I remember watching this, and Jay Leno was asking him, "So you're running for president, but if you don't win the primary, would you be willing to take a role as vice president?" And he said, "Well, the vice president's job is literally just to sit around and make sure the president doesn't die and to attend foreign state funerals. So no." That was his version of the job description. Well, apparently it's also to chair ridiculous meetings and to make sure you virtue signal on the behalf of the administration, because that's where we are with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is the most, well, I don't know. It's a close race. Well, you know what? I look at the whole. Dang. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna have to just backtrack here. I was about to say she's the most over her head member of the administration, but I'm looking at, in my mind, I immediately went to Pete Buttigieg, and then I also went to Alejandro Mayorkas, and then I went to Jennifer Granholm, and then I went, okay, never mind. The whole administration's over their head. But the reality is this. Kamala Harris chaired a meeting yesterday. The meeting was ostensibly a roundtable to discuss the impact of Roe v. Wade's overturn by the Supreme Court on the disabled members of U.S. communities. What? Okay, so the Vice President of the United States of freaking America is chairing a roundtable to discuss the negative impacts of Roe v. Wade on people with disabilities. That was a photo op. That was oh man, we're going to do this thing. And there she sat at a table with her mask on. And she started off by announcing her pronouns and then pointed out that she is the woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. I kid you not. Probably a lot of y'all already heard it. I tell you what, let's hear it anyway. Boomer, you got that audio clip? You good to go? Clip one, brother. Go ahead and hit that.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And
you know what's also funny? If you watch the video, she had to read that off of a page in front of her. She literally looked at her notes, I assume to remind herself that she is a woman and that she was, in fact, wearing a blue suit.
She actually looked at her blue suit, too, to make sure it was
She
blue.
did. She looked down at her blue suit to acknowledge to her own mind, was it blue that I put on today? Yes, it was, a very bright blue. So, yeah, thank you for that commentary, Boomer. So here's her quote that went along with it. She continued saying that they were there to discuss justice and equality and freedom. She said she had concerns about how the Supreme Court decision would uniquely impact Americans with disabilities. What? Saying the Dobbs decision and the act of the U.S. Supreme Court was, quote, to take away a constitutional right that had been recognized from the people of America will impact a lot of people and different in some situations, and we need to be responsive to these issues and also look at the voices of all people that will be impacted and the way they will be impacted. Okay. I don't want to say the vice president smokes crack before she has meetings, But I hear that word salad, and I just don't know for a fact that she was right. But the other thing that happened, though, the people went around the table, and much like her, they introduced themselves, they said their preferred pronouns, and they announced what they were wearing and how they were looking. One lady even went on to say that she was wearing a see-through mask so you could see my red lips. Okay, so I put that out on social media this morning on Twitter. I had one of my usual trolls say they were talking to people who they were visually impaired. And I said, no, they were insultingly pandering to people who are visually impaired. That's what's happening. They were kneeling to the woke mob. There is zero benefit to the Vice President of the United States sitting at a meeting discussing abortion and how it's going to impact disabled citizens, announcing her pronouns and telling the world what she's wearing. If you're blind, you don't care what she's wearing. That's worth noting. So she has to announce to the blind people what she's wearing, who can't see it anyway, so why does it matter? Folks, this is the epitome of virtue signaling. It was sick. It was awful. It was just embarrassing. But I look at it and go, okay, that almost feels funny and pitiful, and you sort of feel bad for her because she's been stuck with this as part of her agenda for the day. But what happens when government goes woke and it takes things to a new level and it comes after you, or it tries to change your life, or it tries to take the purse strings and remove the funding for things that people need? Well, here's a story from AL.com. Dated today, actually yesterday, dated yesterday. Alabama joins 21 states in suing the Biden administration over transgender policies and school food programs. Here's the background story. On my show, I mentioned this about a month ago, I believe, that the Department of Education, under the Biden administration's executive orders to pursue transgender, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, that the Biden administration's Department of Education is now literally revising its regulations, and is saying that if you are a school that receives money for free and reduced lunches, which, by the way, the vast majority of public schools do, and some private schools do, this is how kids who are underprivileged sometimes get the best meal they're going to have, and sometimes even the only meal they're going to have that day. I can remember when I was a kid, my dad was in the military, and after Vietnam, he was assigned to teach ROTC at Ole Miss for a period of time. So we lived in Mississippi briefly in Oxford, and I went to a school where they not only had free and reduced lunch, they had free and reduced breakfast. We would go to class, and we would have a break at like an hour into class, and everybody go to the lunchroom, and everybody got chocolate milk and a banana or something like that. It was because, I didn't know it, I went home saying, "It's so cool, Mom, we get this big snack." And she said, "Honey, that's because a lot of those kids don't have breakfast. They can't afford breakfast at their house." I had no idea. Well, how about this? So the Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall, according to AL.com, joined attorneys general from 21 other states in a federal lawsuit today against the Biden administration over new rules that seek to prohibit discrimination against transgender students at schools that receive federal food assistance. Here's our own AG's quote. He said, "Joe Biden and his administration are obsessing with imposing their extremist sexual politics on the people of our great nation, adults and children alike," Marshall said in a press release. Their latest plan, which comes at a time of skyrocketing inflation and food costs as well as a looming recession, is to hold school children's food hostage unless their schools submit to the left's radical gender identity agenda. This immoral, illegal scheme cannot stand. That's our Attorney General talking right there. Now, keep in mind, in Alabama, our legislature passed a bill last year, I believe, to require public school students to, use the restrooms and locker rooms designated for the sex shown on their birth certificates. And then we also passed a bill prohibiting schools from allowing students to participate on sports teams that conflict with their biological sex shown on their birth certificate. So we're not playing in Alabama. We're not going down that road. So that means the law of our state says we don't do that. And yet the federal government says, yeah, here's how we're going to work this. You want to keep feeding those kids for lunch who can't afford a meal otherwise because their families are poor? we're not going to give you the money to do it unless you'll change your laws or change your regulations. That's absolutely what happens when government goes woke. Absolutely an abuse of the opportunity for government to govern. Well, okay, I got a stack like that. I got stuff, man. Like what else? Oh, Phil, praise. What can else be the stack you got? Well, how about this? This one was funny, not. Republican, this is Daily Caller. The Daily Caller dated yesterday. The Daily Caller, brazen discrimination. Senator Ted Cruz grills a Biden official over State Department emails that allegedly exclude hiring of straight white men. Yeah, Boomer, you and I can't get a job at the State Department. This keeps up, man. I know you were just pining away to leave the Rightside studio and go work as a diplomat in Moldova or someplace, but you being a straight white dude, it's an uphill climb for you, brother. I'm just saying. I know. If y'all could see Boomer just throwing his hands in the air, his plans, his dreams have been quashed. So Republican Texas Senator Ted Cruz pressed the State Department's chief diversity. Okay, first of all, we have a diversity and inclusion officer at the State Department. Problem number one. Her name is Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley. All right, hyphenated name. Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley over an email allegedly excluding straight white men and people of the wrong religion. Oh, that's right, too. I know, Boomer, I know you love the Lord. That's also a strike against you, just so you know.
Man.
I know. It's hurting, man. Don't even fill out the application. Just stop.
No, I'm not going to do it.
The senator argued Tuesday that the department's equity action plan, which changed hiring practices at the agency, is nothing more than brazen discrimination. He goes on to read an email from a senior department official describing reports from candidates who claim they were denied a position, and the email says it, because they were classified as white men or straight white men or not being of the right religion. And he asked Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley, the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer from the State Department, did you clear this guidance? I've never seen that before, said Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer Gina Abercrombie-Winstanley. The senator said he also suspected that the person being not of a right religion refers to Christians. So white Christian straight males need not apply. Well, then he looked at her and said, what would you say you do around here, the senator said. What is your job, if not to stop discrimination? And unfortunately, he said, I believe your job in practice is encouraging discrimination. He said, and this is a manifestation. Is it good for the State Department, good for the United States government to be actively discriminating based on disability, based on race, based on being a straight white man, or based on not being the right religion? Is that good or bad? And her response was, indeed. And so I would say comments do not at all say it is indeed happening. I don't know what that means. I don't even know what that means. I'm going to stop right there. Boomer, take me to a break before I pop a vein, man. I'm just saying. I got more of this. What happens when government goes woke? Number one of the Triple Dipper. You want to call in? By the way, I would love to hear if anybody out there has experienced having to use their pronouns at work. That I'm hearing that's happening in Alabama right now. I mean, I've got reports. Call it in. 833-68-RIGHT. That's the phone number. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Broadcasting across the greater half of North Alabama. Yeah, I'm talking about from Clanton to the Tennessee line, from Tuscaloosa over to Gadsden. We are covering some ground these days, man. Hey, I got to tell you too a little bit of breaking news that goes right into this segment. So I'm doing number one of the Triple Dipper is when government goes woke. When government goes woke, and I did my monologue right before that on don't take that knee. Don't bow down when they tell you you have to do what they say. You have to yield to the new mantras, that you have to, use the right pronouns or kneel to the BLM activists. I mean, no. How about no? Well, what about this? I just saw two things. Number one, on Twitter, I'm looking at a tweet that was put out. So you may recall that the guy that goes by the name Leah Thomas now, who believes that he is now a woman, who's been, competing in swim competitions and has been, just basically setting all kinds of new records in women's competitions as a guy. Well, she's a guy. So anyway, she was put up for Woman of the Year. He was put up. I'm sorry. He was put up for Woman of the Year. Well, he got beat. He didn't make Woman of the Year. So thankfully, Columbia University's fencer Sylvie Binder is the actual Woman of the Year and not the one that goes by the name Leah Thomas now. So there's that. How about don't bow down? I like that. Here's the other thing that happened. You may have heard, if you haven't, I'll tell you now, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization, they held a conference just in the last few days down in Tampa, Florida. And the ladies from The View, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, that crew, they came out with some scathing comments about them yesterday. Why? Because there were protesters who showed up outside, and as a counter to the protesters, there were some neo-Nazis that showed up. I saw a video of it. It looked like about 6 or 8 of them, like total. Anyway, these 6 or 8 neo-Nazis showed up with their Nazi flags and were protesting out front. Well, of course, Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg and that crew just castigated Turning Point USA about all the Nazis showing up at their events. Nazis are there at their events as if they were the ones sanctioning it. Turning Point USA didn't want them there. They were on public property, and the police couldn't make them leave until they stepped into private property. And so Turning Point USA doesn't take a knee. They sent a cease and desist letter from their lawyers to the producers of The View. And today, The View members had to apologize on the air because they were given cease and desist or be sued by Wednesday. Well, that's today. So good job, Turning Point USA, for not taking a knee when the View ladies call you out for things that don't even match reality. All right, that was cool. Breaking news, but cool stuff nonetheless. You had a caller a minute ago during the break, Boomer. What was that about?
Well, yeah, we had a caller, but he didn't want to come on the air. It was Ty White from Moulton. He was basically going back to what you were talking about a little earlier about the federal government not giving, money for the schools for food.
Yeah.
And what he was saying was, what if in Alabama, what if we took that gas tax that we had and apply it to the schools, and then they're getting their food, and then we don't have to go about the federal government and stuff.
Well, I don't know if it'd be the gas tax, Ty. I mean, but I hear your point, because we have a record surplus in the education budget right now. So how about we just go ahead and say, hey, you know what, federal government, never mind. We don't want your money, and we'll just go ahead and we'll fund those free and reduced lunches ourselves, and then you can just take a hike. So there's that. Yeah, that's a neat idea. All right, what else have I got here in my stack? I'm doing number one of the Triple Dipper. All this applies. Everything we just talked about is really a kind of a part of number one of the Triple Dipper when government goes woke. We're finding government sometimes in the public school system, to include the public universities. And so Fox News has a story dated today, a rather lengthy story, mind you. Parents push back on American colleges promoting diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear parents are pushing back. Don't take that knee, by the way. It says some universities across America are requiring compliance from faculty in the form of signed diversity, equity, and inclusion statements as conditions for tenure or promotion. Good gosh. So it's not your job. It's not how well you performed. It's not the level of comprehension gained by your students. It's not whether you've been published or peer reviewed. No, it's apparently whether you're willing to sign a statement saying you support diversity, equity, and inclusion, which one professor likens to the anti-communist loyalty oaths of the late 40s and 50s. Not a fan. Gotta push back. Got to. Don't take that knee when government goes woke. We got more of that. Y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio, Phil Williams, live here in the Rightside studios, local, state, national. Man, I'm telling you, we do cover all the issues. Saving the world one soundbite at a time, I like to say. Solid, conservative, just plain right. I do have a, oh, it's Jeff from Indiana. Jeff, how you doing today, man? Do I have Jeff? All right. Hey, is that Jeff from Indiana? Where you at? Boomer.
Can you hear me?
I got you now, brother. How you doing?
All right. We're doing great, Phil.
Wh-
Hey, what are you trying to do? Get yourself shut out off of YouTube? You're calling a man a man. I mean, come on. You know we're talking about unicorns here, baby.
You're making it worse by calling them unicorn people on the show.
Well, you know, this community is the most inclusive community there ever was. So
Certainly.
why would you put anybody else out? Because I mean, they apparently include everybody, no matter what you are.
You know,
So let's just call them. Let's just call them the community of people.
it's just
which I'm part of, and you're part of.
you know that's going too far, Jeff. That's going way too far. We got we got diversity, equity, and inclusion we have to think about here. I mean, wow.
Well, yeah. How about the inclusion part? We're including everybody, so this is yeah. We got everybody. I mean, skinheads, Ku Klux Klansmen. I mean, you know, where does it end at?
And now, by the way, it's even getting to the point that we're not even including people. We're including people that don't think they're people. They call themselves furries. They believe that they identify now as animals. So I just don't know how to quite to respond to that, except to say there are treatments for these mental disorders. I mean, what do you think?
Only people I can think that they're being non-inclusive of is actually normal people.
Yeah.
So if you're oddball, you're the oddball community, I'd say.
Well, yeah, and I guess that goes to why a little while ago I had an article. Senator Ted Cruz was taking to task the diversity, equity, and inclusion director for the Department of State. They had an email that said they weren't going to be hiring straight, white, Christian males. So how's that for inclusion?
Well, I'm discrimination. That's discrimination.
I know.
I don't think. I think I should sue somebody. I might want to go work for them.
I mean, I'm guessing that you and Boomer and I, we just can't. We just might as well not even fill out the application. It's just, you know, we're danged if we do.
How long is it going to be before we start getting tattoos on our arms, man?
Just what we getting unicorn tattoos? What are you doing?
Well, yeah. Well, no. I mean, apparently, you know, if we're included, you know, the Jews had a lot of tattoos on their arms.
Oh, that's true. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm kind of feeling like I'm in that group right now, the way they're going.
Well, you know what? Don't take a knee to them, man. Whatever you do. In fact, I think I know better than even say that to you, but don't take a knee to them, man. That's where we got to be. We got to stay on our feet the entire time.
I'm too fat and dilapidated to get down and get back up again anyway.
And I'm just too ornery. So between us, we ain't kneeling. But, hey, Jeff,
there you go.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for calling in. You have a great day. All right, wow, that's one of my favorites. I love it when Jeff from Indiana calls in. By the way, that's one of the cool things about this show. We have a ton of people that get way outside the broad range of our AM/FM capability here on Rightside Radio. A lot of folks stream it. You can. By the way, I always say it. Anywhere in the whole wide world, go to the World Wide Web, click on rightsideradio.org. That's our website, rightsideradio.org. And there's a place on there where you can do listen live or podcast or video. It's all on one page. So I just want to encourage you, if you find yourself getting outside the overly broad range of our AM/FM capability, which is basically over half the state, and even parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, then just know this. You can go to the website, click on Listen Live, and no matter where you is, there we is what I like to say. And that's why we have folks like Jeff from Indiana who calls in, and we got Jerome in Rome. Hope you're doing well over there, bud. We got Steve up in Tennessee. We got, who else? We got people in, I know we got people in Michigan. We got people in Virginia. We got people in California, Louisiana, South Alabama. I'm just saying, And then there's that podcast that we were talking about earlier, Boomer, with 65,300 downloads now.
That's huge.
Huge with California. Hello, California. We love you out there on the left coast. California being our second biggest podcast audience. I can't explain that, but I like it. I like it a lot. By the way, did I ever tell you, Boomer, I used to live in California? Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the eclectic life of Phil Williams. But
Wow. Guess what? I lived there for a very short stint.
where'd you live in California?
Right in the Hollywood area.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. I worked on a few movies.
There's a story here somewhere.
Just a few little stories.
Well, we did when I was in sixth, seventh grade. I lived literally in Orange County in Laguna. Yep, sure enough, I did, and then I escaped. But okay, listen, you want to call in, by the way, the new phone number here is 833-68-RIGHT. That's 833-68-RIGHT. We'll take those calls. Hey, moving on now, you might want to know this. When government goes woke, that's number one on the Triple Dipper. How about this? The state of California spent an estimated $500 million on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, including $50,000 on racial equity for their fishing department. I'm just saying. It points out that here a conservative nonprofit estimates that California spent over $500 million, including $50,000 on racial equity training for the State Fish and Wildlife Department. The Center for Organizational Research and Education, I'm looking at a story from Fox News, by the way, from about 2 weeks ago. It says diversity, equity, and inclusion is becoming California's newest billion-dollar industry on the taxpayer dime. That's just messed up, man. They took out over 400 Public Records Act requests, compiled the data, and it says the results are unmistakable. Spending related to DEI, that's the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and critical race theory framed activities is a vast and growing component of taxpayer-funded spending in California. I mean, like, wow. I can name you the departments. $180,000 for the California Department of Conservation on those DEI initiatives. Just on and on and on. The report also found that below the state level, even California counties and cities spend $110 million at the county level. Wow. All right. Hey, I got a caller. Oh yeah, Brian from Huntsville, line one. Brian from Huntsville. Brian, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing hoo-ah.
Hoo-ah. How are you, sir?
Doing well, and based on Jeff from Indiana and your call and everything, I'm sitting there and I've got to renew my hunting license and fishing license here in Alabama pretty shortly. And I'm wondering, I don't see anything about furries on that list. And I'm wondering if anybody can enlighten me. That was it, sir. You have a blessed day.
Oh, God. There is no license. We're going to be banned from YouTube. Our live streaming is going to get shut down. So, all right, listen. What a great audience. Moving on here, I'm not even going to go down that road. So, moving on here, sure, call in, by the way. This is great content. 833-68-RIGHT. That's 833-68-RIGHT is the phone number here to the Rightside Studio. Number one on the Triple Dipper, when government goes woke. Here's one for you. This will make you mad. You ready? All you green suitors out there at Redstone Arsenal, just know that the military is headed down this way if you haven't already figured it out. A video, according to WTKR local channel in Norfolk, Virginia, dated June 22nd of this year. A video posted by the U.S. Navy. That's right, our vaunted U.S. Navy, the greatest Navy in the history of the world. A video posted by the U.S. Navy is sparking debate about the military and attitudes towards the LGBTQ community. The video was recently posted to the Defense Visual Information Distribution Service, known as DVIDs. I've seen DVIDs many times, which is a website where the military posts pictures and videos. It shows two naval engineers. Here you go. Ready? Two naval engineers talking about using someone's preferred pronouns and what to do if a sailor doesn't know someone's pronouns. How about this? Stop it. Stop. I mean, you're on ship. You know what? What you do on shore leave is going to be your business. You're on ship duty. Don't bring that crap in there. It has no place. The article says former Navy SEAL Robert O'Neill, who was part of the team that killed Osama bin Laden, tweeted out, "Your pronouns are shipmate and shipmates. There, I just saved the taxpayer millions by avoiding ridiculously useless training." Totally agree, Rob. Thank you for your service. So when government goes woke, you find this stuff everywhere. Sometimes it's laughable, sometimes it's worrying, and sometimes, by the way, it's just coercive. Here's another coercive for you. You ready? Dated July 26th, that'd be yesterday, the Post Millennial reports. Headline: Biden demands that insurance companies cover medical gender transition and abortion. Okay, here we go. The Biden administration on Monday afternoon announced a new plan to modify the Affordable Care Act. I'm telling you, when John McCain refused to put the thumbs up on abolishing Obamacare, he left us with things that were predictable, like this. And so now, right now, the Biden administration on Monday announced a new plan to modify the Affordable Care Act to remove safeguarding measures that currently prevent children from having easy access to sex change treatments, or as Biden calls it, gender affirmation care. By the way, you're not affirming, you're changing. All right? They do this. They like to make the words sound more innocent, kind of like reproductive health care for abortion. Well, you're not reproducing. It's like non-reproductive health care if you get down to it. All right, back to the article. The treatments include puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries that make one's body appear more like the opposite sex. The proposal applies to Obamacare health plans, Medicaid, and Medicare. Oh, boy. The proposed rule issued by the Department of Health and Human Services, headed by Javier Becerra, and Assistant HHS Secretary, the one that calls himself Dr. Rachel Levine, a biological male who identifies as transgender and likes to wear his uniform because it makes him feel big, also seeks to allow women to receive abortions by reinterpreting discrimination on the basis of sex to include access to pregnancy termination. So here's the deal. What they're basically doing, what it boils down to is this. Biden is demanding that if you are a healthcare organization that receives federal funding, you know what that means? That's Medicare, that's Obamacare. Healthcare organizations that receive federal funding would then be prevented from discriminating against gender transitions and abortion. In other words, if we can't kill your babies and mess up your kids, we're gonna take it out on you. And so the Biden administration is demanding coverage for gender transitions and abortion if you receive federal funds for medical care. Wow. All right. I got a caller. Tell you what, give me a thumbs up, man, when you're ready on that caller over there. There's just so much here. You got a caller? Boomer, you good to go?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, man. I'll tell you what. Line one. Ray from Arab. Ray, how you doing today?
Quite well, and yourself?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Just wanting to share about a Huntsville company that a couple of weeks ago sent out email to employees notifying them that they had pronoun badges that they could pick up and wear if they chose to.
Pronoun badges?
Pronoun badges.
So, like, it's not obvious when you look at someone, you have to. Okay.
Agreed. He, she, them, that, him, her. I mean, it's not complicated.
No, it should not be complicated. You know, if your name's Bob and you look like a dude, you probably don't need to have somebody know to call you he and him, right?
Well, I guess for the most part, maybe it would be more applicable if it have identity pronoun badges that those who choose otherwise could wear. So.
Wow. All right, Ray. I guess you probably don't. You want to name the company or leave it alone right now.
I'll just leave it alone.
All right, good enough. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for being in the audience. Hey, Boomer, I ran long, dude. I guess we got to take a break. By the way, Boomer's a dude, just in case you didn't know.
Dude, a complete dude.
All right, folks. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Nothing but dudes here right now in the studio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. right, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, broadcasting across the greater part of North Alabama. Thank you for being with us right now. Hey, I got a new caller on line one. Glad to have him, Tom from Huntsville. Tom, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well, Phil.
Good. What's on your mind?
I was going to call. I was going to tell you. I met a woman in the grocery store. She talked about her son that was in the Army, I believe.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's in a teaching position, and they 2 weeks ago they called him off and said, "Look, you're going to recruiting, and immediately, and we've really lowered the standards. We got to get everybody in we can." And the thought went through my mind: how long is it going to be before the government comes out with a poster of Uncle Sam, with his beard shaven and wearing a skirt?
Uncle Susie at that point, I guess, or
right.
Or dare we say that Uncle Sam is now non-binary in order to be inclusive for everybody?
I would have to say.
I would have to say no. I would have to be wrong. I mean, Tom, appreciate it, man, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll call again.
Please do.
I'm a transplant from the Midwest. I've been here 6 years. Didn't come down for the weather or for work. A longer story, but I can give you some insights and what I've seen and hear, and so I'll be calling back.
You call back, man. We appreciate you. Have a great day.
All right, will do, Phil.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. Love new callers. By the way, coming up here at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to have a short break or short segment here because I ran long on the last segment. But coming up at the 3:30 break, the Grand Council. That's one of my favorite times of every single week when we have brethren who do talk radio around the state call in, and we ping each other with questions, and we go back and forth. We don't even know the questions in advance. We just kind of hit each other up to see what we think about different things, and it winds up getting pretty entertaining. Dale Jackson is going to be with us as always from WVNN in Huntsville, and Tim Melton from Birmingham. We'll have both of them on for the Grand Council coming up here in just a few minutes. Now I got to tell you. My computer may start melting down in a minute if I don't get off this website, but I am right now on the LGBTQIA Resource Center online. Okay, so I'm there right now, and I did it to look up pronouns. I mean, so first of all, they and them is not singular. I don't care what you say. And what galls me is that they think they can make the English language do whatever they want to do. What pronouns do you use? They and them. Who are y'all? No, we is they. I'm they. What does that even mean? How about this? Z and Zer and Zer self and Zers. I don't even know where that comes from. Z, like here's an example. Z reminded Zer self to pick up Zer umbrella before going outside. What the frick does that even mean? I mean, so first of all, if you are in a position of being an educator and you allow this to happen in your class while you're also teaching grammar, you should lose your job. But it's just where it is. Enough of this. Government going woke. I didn't even get to all of it. I got more stuff we didn't even get to. But folks, I'm just telling you, don't take the knee. Don't take the knee. Don't take the knee, because taking the knee, they always want more. All right, coming up next, the Grand Council. Y'all stay tuned. This will be good. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. Just plain right. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Okay, for those of you that aren't used to this in Birmingham, we do a thing every week we call the Grand Council. One of my favorite times every single week when I get together with brethren who do radio around the state, and we ping each other with questions. We see how we do. We don't know the questions in advance. We just lay it out there and see what each other thinks. We don't always agree, but we always love each other when it's done. So I am pleased to welcome today to the Grand Council our Dale Jackson from WVNN up in Huntsville, the morning show guy and program director. Dale Jackson, are you here? Do I have a Dale Jackson? Do I have a Dale Jackson? Did he mute himself again? He muted himself last week.
Oh!
You did it again, didn't you? Yeah.
I did. Because I'm very cognizant of the fact that if I don't, people are going to hear what I have to say. So I got to mute myself. So I am sorry, Colonel. I will do some push-ups here while you talk to Tim. You just tell me when to stop.
That's right. You stay in the front lane and rest. I'll go to Tim right now. All right. Also dialing in for us, sitting in today for Jeff Poor, who usually joins us. We've got our friend Tim Melton, who's host of News and Views on Talk 99.5 out of Birmingham. Tim Melton, are you here, my brother?
I am here, and a muted Dale Jackson is not the worst thing in the world. I can attest to that.
All right. I'll tell you what. I pronounce a quorum. We have the Grand Council present. You got a sound effect for us there, Boomer. Go ahead. Get you ready and hit it.
Assemble the Grand Council.
Oh, that was like that was an abbreviated. Did you cut? What did you just do?
Was he
all right.
muted? What's going on?
I no, Boomer's not muted. We did. All right, stop the madness. Okay, I'll tell you what. Here's the deal, fellas. You know the rules. We ask each other questions. We don't always agree on the answers, but we love each other nonetheless. When it's over, Dale Jackson, you start first. What you got, man?
Okay, I got a question that's unrelated to Alabama politics, but it's just something I've been thinking about today.
All right.
Who asked for a return of Chris Cuomo? I don't know if you've seen this or not. Dan Abrams at News Nation announced yesterday that he had hired Chris Cuomo to do a show on his network, which is essentially on WGN, the station that the Cubs used to play on when we were all growing up. And now Chris Cuomo is going to have a show there. He's going to bring thoughtful journalism because he doesn't like to dig into people's past. That's not his thing, and we wonder why. So tell me about this. Who wanted this?
I'm going to have to defer to Tim on this because I have no idea who would have asked for this. Tim, you got any ideas on this, man?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening. We have all these people dying off in all of these mob movies lately, and Sonny Corleone just passed away here recently, so they thought they'd bring back Fredo, and that's what we've got here with Chris Cuomo.
Oh, you went to the Fredo. My live stream is going to get blocked on YouTube for sure. That's about to happen.
I'm half Italian, so I'm legally okay to say that.
Okay,
I'm half Italian.
All right, well that's all good. We'll just go ahead and take it. I don't know, man. I'm taking it that whoever brought it back is a glutton for punishment because Chris Cuomo just brings like seediness everywhere he goes, in my opinion. But Dale, do you have a thought? Your own question?
Oh, it's for me. It's solely for me. I love this kind of stuff. I like train wrecks, and this guy is just a big train wreck, and he's only going to be worse because now he's going to be on a smaller platform, grasping for more attention. It's going to be delightful.
Oh well, we'll see how it goes. Was that your real question, Dale? Like you took around council and went to Chris Cuomo? That was your question?
Hey, I kind of like to throw things off a little bit.
Okay,
here, so
all right. Well, I'm going to state politics. I'll take the next question. Here we go. So right now, you're starting to finally see that there's like a push. Like it's not just the Alabama Policy Institute saying, "Hey, why aren't we doing some kind of tax relief out of Montgomery? We're flush with cash. We've got all this federal dollars. Our own attorney general filed suit on behalf of the state and won so that we're allowed to use federal relief dollars to offset tax credits or tax incentives or tax relief to people. Do you think we're going to see any tax relief out of Montgomery in the near future? I'm going to go with Tim first. What you got, man?
You know what? The one thing I constantly hear about in terms of tax relief that gets thrown out there is the grocery tax. And you want to talk about helping people? Help people with the grocery tax first and foremost, because these prices are out of control. And if you want to fight back against monthly budgets that are under constant attack, that's the direction I would like to see head for the people of this state. But I'm curious to see what Dale thinks on it all too.
Dale Jackson, what do you think?
I'm kind of shocked they didn't do this already. It's an election year. They had the opportunity here. They did a lot of stuff where they spent money and all these other things, and they didn't really get a big splash of tax cuts on pretty much everything. So they're going to allow the people in the next legislative session to come in and get that victory right away. I don't know. Every time they get there with the food tax, and you were down there, Phil, you know this. Sorry, Colonel Williams. You were down there, and you know that they would say, okay, let's go ahead and work on this removing this food tax. Okay, where are we going to get the money from? They're not going to just let it go. They want it somewhere else. So and that's the hard part, because then people are going to hit them and say they raise taxes.
And that's the thing. Every time somebody brought up a bill, it was always styled as an offset. The reality is this: they're so flush with cash right now, they could just not even do an offset. They could just do a waiver of it. They could go ahead and do away with it. But you're asking government to let go of revenue, and that's the problem we've got right now.
And by the way, what they're going to say, look at inflation.
Yeah.
Say, we need that money because our costs are going up as well. That's how they keep themselves from doing it.
Well, here's the thing. The state of Illinois, under Governor J.B. Pritzker, like as blue as you can possibly get, they just did away with their grocery tax, I think, for up to a year. And that to me is an indication that this is doable, because if there's a teachers union state somewhere in the world that can say don't do it, it's Illinois, and they did it anyway. All right, Tim, you're a newbie here. You got a question?
I do have a question. Here's my question: was Joe Biden out of line today at his Rose Garden victory lap ceremony when he pointed out that Donald Trump had to get helicoptered to Walter Reed Medical Center during his bout with COVID, all while Biden said he worked diligently from the upstairs of the White House? Was Biden out of line today?
Well, no, because nobody expected Biden to go anywhere but his basement. So that was it was familiar territory. It was expected. But was
That's right there on the level with my Fredo joke.
Well, I look at okay, it was a cheap shot, and I mean, why would you call out a former president of the United States? I mean, they hate him anyway. Doesn't matter what he did. If he cured cancer, they would find a reason to diss it. But I think the reality is, it was a cheap shot, trying to imply that someone who got ferried to a hospital in any means was wrong for doing it, because I'm the tough guy. I fought corn pop, and I stayed in my basement. Whatever, man. You also had a lighter variant. Dale, your thoughts?
I believe that it's not much of a surprise here, but what's odd about it is, a lot of Americans went to the hospital with COVID.
Yeah.
A lot of Americans had people that died with COVID, and it seems rather callous. I'll be honest, it's Trump-esque. I mean, it really is. It's very Trumpy, if you will. It sounds like something Donald Trump would say, and so for that reason, I'm going to say he was being a prick. So, I mean, it's completely out of line.
And once again, my YouTube stream is at risk. All right, Tim, it was your own question. What do you think about it?
Oh, it was completely out of line, but this is the candidate that the left continued to prop up and say, this is the nice guy, this is the good guy, he's going to restore respect to the Oval Office, and he cares about unity, and it's a bunch of, I'm trying to use a word that doesn't get you banned on YouTube, but it's a bunch of, let's just say, shenanigans happening there from the Oval Office out to the Rose Garden, and I'm tired of seeing this guy propped up as being the good guy when he constantly makes decisions that show disrespect, and I don't believe any sitting president, once again, should be mocked for going through what was a serious global health scare like what the current president did today with former President Donald Trump. It was out of line.
Yeah, and by the way, you look at the way the two men have bounced back. I mean, Biden, they're like changing the rules with him. But when Trump went in, he got the all of the above kind of treatment plan, the whole cocktail, ivermectin and everything. And next thing you know, he was dancing on stage in front of crowds of 10s or 20,000, and just basically showing what it means to conquer this thing. Whereas Biden quickly retreated to his masked basement and got raspy on air and tried to look tough.
Well, also remember this: we're also getting a very different media coverage out of this, Phil.
Oh yeah,
and it's clear that we're gonna get a look at how this guy bounced back. And they're saying he's sick. Look at this guy. He did great. He beat COVID with one hand tied behind his back. I mean, come on. that's what we're going to get because COVID was a bad
No
dude.
mask, by the way. No mask. I just want to point that out. He had the aviator sunglasses, but no mask. I don't know if they even believe in their own policies.
Well, if you look at it too, the very next day there was an article on Fox, I believe it was, that said that Kamala Harris had been considered one of his close contacts in the days prior, when he would have been infectious, and yet she did not do away with anything on her schedule and went to North Carolina to meet with officials. So, yeah, there it is. All right, fellas, good first round. Let's go ahead, Boomer, take a break right now. You guys stay tuned, and we come back. We'll see whether Dale can unmute his microphone. The Grand Council. Right here on right here on Rightside Radio. Phil Williams, solid conservative, just plain right. We'll be right back. I'll jump on that. So first of all, I'm glad they're doing this trip, but I'm tell them to pound sand. That's what I say. I mean, for crying out loud, you can't make everything about a political issue or, oh, you don't care about me enough. How about this? If you want to go see a place, go see the place. You don't have to see everybody else in the extraneous, political environment that borders the place. This is a tourism opportunity, a show junket, an opportunity for the kids to see something. Lighten up, and by the way, college students shouldn't have to be drawn into political battles. So there's that. Tim, what you think, bud?
Cancel culture is definitely at the doorsteps of these two coaches that Dale just profiled, in my opinion. But they're too successful right now to be canceled, and that is the thing that is defending them from what has seen a lot of people swept up in a lot of situations where they're constantly having to defend themselves regardless of their job performance. And at the end of the day, Bruce Pearl's going to be judged by how many wins he gets on that basketball court, not any of his views that he shares out there. And I think that's his best form of protection, is to continue to dominate there on the hardwood.
Good straight answer. Dale Jackson, your own question. What you think?
They're going over there to play 3 games against some Israeli teams. It's a good opportunity for the kids to get to see some interesting stuff that they probably would not get to see. And I agree with what you said earlier. Just because I go to A doesn't mean I don't care about B, and I have to go and show you I care about B as well. I think that's weak, and I agree that there's just no reason for it. And Bruce Pearl has shown he is not going to play this game. And I think the football coach at Auburn, too, with the whole vaccine thing, he said he's not going to play this game. And we can talk about how he's ranked to end last in the SEC West for this football season, but Harsin and Pearl look like the administration supports them and lets them do their thing, and I think that's a good sign.
That's a real good sign. All right, tell you what, I'll take the next question. So Attorney General Steve Marshall, just yesterday it was announced he sued the federal government along with a group of other attorneys general over threats from the federal government to pull the funding for free and reduced lunches in schools across Alabama if the schools in Alabama don't jump on board with their woke transgender policies. Well, our state law doesn't allow that, first of all. We have the use a locker room of your biological, birth sex. We have the don't play sports that cross over from your biological birth sex. Is the federal government really so tone deaf that they will pull lunch money from kids to get their trans agendas pushed through? Your thoughts. Tim, you first.
Yes, they are tone deaf enough to do that. Kamala Harris, by the way, is wearing a blue suit. I just want to point that out. They'll go for it. Anything to advance this agenda. I don't know why. Don't ask me to justify it in any way. But yes, I have no doubt that they'll go as far as pulling food away from kids who are in need of those nutrients, no doubt.
Pessimistic, but I tend to agree. Dale, you think?
I think this is one of those typical Joe Biden-esque situations where he does something he knows is going to get blown up, and then he goes, oh, damn, those guys, they did it again. They stopped me from doing what I wanted to do, because then he gets the points for trying, and then they get to say these mean old Republicans did all this stuff to stop him. I hope that they're successful. I think they will be successful. The two things have nothing to do with each other. And once again, the Biden administration just continuing to go far, far left on these things.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about sports and bathrooms and all this. People do not want this stuff in their schools, and now they're trying to mandate it, or we're going to starve the kids. Okay, good call.
So you're thinking, Dale, though, is it
probably?
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, some of the kids probably would be grateful to have the school lunches taken away from them, just because Michelle Obama already butchered the menu many years ago. So
there's only so many carrots and veggie sticks that you can have for lunch, right? All right, so Dale, you're thinking though that this is basically virtue signaling with no intent to really win the victory, just a virtue signal that they tried. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think they do that a lot in the Biden administration.
They do a lot of that. All right, Tim, last question, man. We got about 2.5 minutes. What you think?
I've also got a basketball-centered question. Does WNBA star Brittany Griner deserve to be saved by the same country that she has previously expressed zero respect for?
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess if I have to look at it personally, I hate it for her, but she may have earned the penalty she's facing right now. But secondly, I would say this: American citizens should not be left behind. Let her come back here and deal with it. Let her come back here and then explain why she hates the country that went and rescued her. So I say let's go ahead and do what we can diplomatic. I'm not sure how I feel about trading a Russian arms dealer to get her back, but at the same time, I think we ought to be making every diplomatic effort to get her back. And then let her face the music when she gets here about why she dissed the country so badly that she wanted to come home to, and she begged for them to intervene. Dale, your thoughts?
I got a better trade. You take LeBron James and you trade him for Brittany Griner. That's the correct trade. He said he doesn't know why she'd want to come back, so that means he doesn't want to be here either. Boom, you solve the problem right away. I think she's a political prisoner, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, she did what they're alleging she did, and she knows it. But they're going to hold her longer probably than anyone else, at least until this current little dust-up with Russia is over. She'll act as a political prisoner for that time period. But yes, America should try to help her. She is an American citizen being held as a political prisoner. How much they're going to be able to do, I just don't know.
Your own question, Tim. What you think, man? You got about a minute.
I agree. The effort should be put in to bring her back, but I would love to see her then have to go on some sort of motivational speaking tour about what it means to be an American and how grateful she is to have this country fighting on behalf of her. So I'm right there along with you guys in the same vein of thought here.
But I'm not holding my breath looking for that speaking tour to kick off anytime soon. I'm just saying. All right, Dale Jackson from 92.5 FM WVNN up in Huntsville, and Tim Melton from 99.5 down in Birmingham. We appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for joining us for the Grand Council today. All right, listen, that is just way cool. And that was perfect timing, too. We are going to take the news break. We're going to come back for the last hour of the day. Those of y'all in Birmingham, you're about to join in with Greg Davis from Priority Talk. Those of y'all in Huntsville Market, stay tuned. We got another hour, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and like the dude just said, yes, we are. Just plain right. Local, state, national. Man, we got all the issues covered here. I'm going to move to number 2 in the Triple Dipper here momentarily. But I got to say this. There's a breaking story right now here on the big screens in the Rightside studio. I'm looking up on the left screen, which is very appropriate, by the way, because that's CNN. The left screen is Boomer set that up just right. The right screen is Fox. The left screen is CNN. There's Adam Kinzinger. Oh, bless him. Adam Kinzinger, who's not going to be in office much longer, and I'm fine with that. He'll probably get a job as a pundit, coming in on The View and hanging out with Whoopi Goldberg and the rest of them. Anyway, basically saying that they're going to hold everyone from January 6th accountable. And they're asking, Democrats and members of the January 6th Commission are asking for Merrick Garland to please indict President Trump. Please pursue it. This reminds me, she's probably going to hate that I tell this story. My daughter, when she was little, we taught her that please is the right word. But unfortunately, she didn't gather for a bit there. She got it now, obviously. But she didn't gather that it's also how you say it. And so she used to use please like a demanding, please. And like, okay, no, darling, it doesn't work when you scream please at us. It doesn't work that way. Well, that's what the Democrats are doing with trying to get please, Merrick Garland, please, indict, Donald Trump. Jackwagons. All right, we'll see how that plays out. It's I'll be honest, this administration would not surprise me with anything, but there has never, ever been a former sitting president indicted for anything that occurred years prior in his administration. Oh, by the way, they've done nothing, in my opinion, to make a case that you can hand to Merrick Garland and expect him to be able to prevail upon it. First of all, Trump will be allowed to hire any lawyer he wants, and he'll get a great legal team. He has all the money in the world to pay for it. Plus, I would dare say this, he could probably get his fees taken care of because he was acting in his official capacity at all times, and they're suing him for things he allegedly did. Now, they might try to say, no, it was in relation to his campaign. So if they can get him out of his official capacity and say that all the accusations dealt with things that related to his campaign Trump as opposed to President Trump, then maybe they can get around that. Otherwise, the government has to pay his legal expenses. We'll see. Or at least provide additional counsel paid for by the government. All right, enough of that. That's just jackwagon stuff that's just playing out right now on the left screen on the wall up in the studio here. All right, so I'm going to number 2 on the Triple Dipper. Time to go international. All right, we've been covering state and national stuff. We're going international for a bit. China rising. That's number 2 on my Triple Dipper. China rising. So first of all, understand that there are terms that are being used right now in defense and foreign policy. Defense and foreign policy often refers now to what they call near-peer adversaries, meaning they may not be on the same scale as the United States when it comes to military capabilities or economic standing. But China is considered to be a near-peer adversary, meaning they are very close to our levels. They are one of the largest threats to our standing in the world, and they are moving further and further into what I would call a threatening posture. I'll tell you what, Boomer, go ahead and get that clip 2 ready, the one that has General Keane. I want that here in just a minute. But General Jack Keane, who is probably one of the pundits when it comes to foreign and sometimes even, the military and sometimes this foreign policy that I really respect. I mean, when he speaks, I tend to want to pause the TV, rewind it, make sure I can get all of it. But he had a clip here, and this clip is right at a tad over a minute. Am I right, Boomer? Tad over a minute. General Jack Keane talked about the fact that we are reaching a very critical point with China right now. So I want to kick off with retired 4-star General Jack Keane, thoughts on China. Go ahead and play it.
Well, there's a couple things the administration has done that's very good. They took what Trump was doing and strengthening the allies and partners, particularly the Quad alliance, Japan, Australia, United States, and India, and have strengthened that and had meetings associated with that. So exercises and working together has taken place as a result of. They've also strengthened the relationship with our other allies and partners in the region, and much of his visit out there is just literally about that. He's going to meet with all the chiefs of the military in that entire region in Sydney, Australia, later this week. So that's a good thing. What we haven't done, in my mind, rapidly enough, is actually strengthen the position of Taiwan and also in the region when it pertains to U.S. capability. And what the concern is here is that, you know, President Xi, who's going to be enshrined here in the fall of this year for a third term, likely indefinitely, I believe the clock may be moving closer to aggressive military action against Taiwan as opposed to being later. And why is that? One, because he knows, Julie, he's got a military advantage right now. And eventually that military advantage will be closed by the United States. Two, he has some economic setbacks now, but they're due to get worse. So I think we're getting into a much more...
We're getting into a much more precarious position with China, he went on to say. And I'll be honest with you, he would know better than anybody. He would know more than me, but I agree with it. I do. I mean, I look at it and I think, okay, near peer adversary, they want what we've got, and yet it's not just a matter of supposition. There's open source. When you look at all source, open source, so all source meaning you can go out there and find it all over the place. I'm boiling it down to colloquialism here, but all source intel means you look at all sources available. You're out there gathering up things. Open source meaning it's not confidential. You can find it in the newspaper, if you will. You can find it online. It's not hard to get to. Well, open source, all source gathering, I'm just telling you, it's pointing towards an aggressive China that is leaning forward in the foxhole, if you will. They are literally pushing forward with agendas of their own that posture them in the world stage as the threat to our national and international security. So, story I've got here off the AP. Storyline dated today. Pacific defense chiefs meet against the backdrop of a rising China. Defense chiefs from across the Indo-Pacific gathered this week to bolster their connections against a backdrop of China's ongoing campaign to expand its influence and military presence. Okay, so this is happening right now. General Mark Milley, chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, he's there right now for a meeting with other Indo-Pacific military leaders. They're all meeting for 3 days in Sydney, and they're focused on the what they called, quote, the whole situation with the rise of China and a free and open Pacific. Milley said it's a big conference, but he's also following up with comments he made that talk about China being far more aggressive. And where's my comment here in the statement? He said, Milley said Beijing is much more confrontational than they were 5 to 15 years ago. He went on to say it seems to imply they want to bully or dominate as opposed to having a free and open Pacific. Asked whether or not the U.S. would increase its military presence in Australia or in other partner nations, Milley said the discussions are ongoing. No decisions have been made. There's about 2,200 U.S. Marines stationed in Darwin, which is in Australia. President Joe Biden plans to speak to Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday of this week, tomorrow. The agenda has not been released. There are some things that we believe they're going to talk about. Here's the thing. Also scheduled right now is Nancy Pelosi is planning a trip to Taiwan. Just before we went on the air today, I'm looking up on the screen, and I haven't seen any more about it since then, but apparently China issued a statement saying, if Pelosi goes to Taiwan, we consider that to be a red line. A red line for what? I don't know. Do I think that means they're going to launch an invasion of Taiwan while Pelosi's over there, snacking? I don't think so. But what I do think it means is China is trying to be they're raising the level of bluster to new levels. And oh, by the way, they're also, if you will, they're throwing down terms that used to be from the old Obama-Biden administration about red lines. Remember that? Well, here's the deal. Don't back down. I'm not a big Nancy Pelosi fan, obviously, but don't back down. If Speaker Pelosi is saying she's going over there and she backs down because China blusters, then we lose. So she has got to continue this trip. We've got to do it because if we don't, then China's allowed to bark and we react, and that's not the way to go. All right, so a story off of Fox dated yesterday with regards to the fact that China is rising and Biden is going to be speaking to Xi. Storyline says, dated yesterday, Biden to speak with Xi amid warnings that China poses the greatest threat to U.S. national security. So, yes, they are having this call tomorrow. The White House said it's to establish the relationship more so with Beijing. It says, quote, one of the most consequential bilateral relationships in the world. Admiral John Kirby, spokesperson for the National Security Council, could not give a specific date and time for the call between Biden and Xi, but he says it probably will happen this week, so it's real loose right now. Kirby said Biden and Xi would discuss everything from the tensions over Taiwan to the war in Ukraine, as well as how we better manage competition between our two nations. The call between Biden and Xi comes as, here you go, ready? Pentagon and Intel officials warn of the threat that China poses to U.S. national security. Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security Affairs, Eli Ratner, said on Tuesday, it's only a matter of time before a major incident or accident occurs in the Indo-Pacific amid China's aggressive and irresponsible behavior, saying that Beijing has escalated tensions at a pace unseen before. That's some strong rhetoric, and I don't know if he was released to say that or if it's one of those things where they said, get him to say this. We'll put that out there and let the president address it later. I don't know. All I know is it's being said, and we got a phone call between leaders. All right, we're in China Rising, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. Boomer, let's go ahead and take a break right now. Take that while I got my schedule flowing in the right direction, brother. Time now, 4:18 p.m. China Rising, near peer adversary. How do you feel about it? You're welcome to call in, 833-68-RIGHT, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. You know, we're on number 2 of the Triple Dipper, China Rising. I just had one text come in from a listener who said she does not trust Biden to represent us with strength in talks with China. Says, in my opinion, he's compromised. That's a great opinion. You know, there's a lot of talk out there about Hunter Biden, his ties to China, whether or not he's been compromised, and does that compromise his father? And for that matter, I would bet from the first part of that text, she's also saying she just doesn't trust him to have any strength in his negotiations, because he's not known for being a strong negotiator. I mean, I know he beat up Corn Pop back in the day, but dang. So let's continue this vein. China Rising. So right before the break, I was talking about the fact that China is being seen as not just the near-peer adversary, but an aggressive near-peer adversary, someone that General Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said is becoming far more emboldened, far more aggressive in nature. We have a report that a senior DOD official came out and said that this is literally, the intel is showing this to be someone who is a country that is literally in an aggressive posture, and one that we should watch out for. Well, the Biden administration has said overall, story here on Fox News dating back to March. Title of it, Biden admin has deep concerns about China's alignment with Russia amid a war against Ukraine. So keep in mind, the other near-peer adversary, if you could call them that, is Russia. Now, what we're seeing is their military is not near as fearsome or capable as, some might have believed before they invaded Ukraine. Because Ukraine, a nation that is, no small thing. I mean, they're one of the larger nations in Europe, but they didn't have the military capability that Russia had, and Ukraine is putting the wood to them on a regular basis. I mean, it's been tough. It's a war of attrition. They are losing ground slowly, and it's kind of an erosion as opposed to a capitulation. But Ukraine's making them pay for it. The world did not believe this war was going to last more than about a week. I mean, we're 6 months in now, right? 6 months, I think, or close to it. And basically right now, still to this day, Ukraine is making them pay with blood and treasure for every square inch of ground. Well, nonetheless, that's Russia. They're still considered to be one of the near-peer adversaries in the world, but China is the big one. Fox News, March 14th, Biden administration has deep concerns about China's alignment with Russia amid the war in Ukraine. Says the Biden administration has deep concerns about this alignment. An official briefed reporters after White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan completed what they called a, quote, intense 7-hour session in Rome, Italy, with the director of Chinese Foreign Affairs, Yang Jiechi, I think it is. Mr. Sullivan raised a range of issues in U.S.-China relations with substantial discussion, he said, on Russia's war against Ukraine. The official went on to say, we do have deep concerns about China's alignment with Russia. The National Security Advisor was direct about those concerns, the potential implications and consequences of certain actions. That's about as benign a statement as I've ever heard. Deep concerns about things we can't name, things that are happening at times around us. Anyway, but one of the things that Jake Sullivan did warn about before he went to the meeting, is that there would be consequences for large-scale sanctions evasions. What they're doing, it's largely believed that China is becoming the new greatest customer that Russia has for its oil and gas exports. They are also propping them up on the world stage and backing them at the UN. And oh, by the way, just basically there to be an affirming source of international foreign policy guidance. And that's just not a good thing. That's not a good partnership for us. And we don't need that happening. So, yeah, I agree. That's something to be warned about. But it's not just us. So, post-World War II, the Japanese formed their new constitution, which became what is known as a pacifist constitution. They did not have expeditionary forces. They have the Japanese Defense Force. They are not an expeditionary force. Well, story off the AP dated July 22nd. In the wake of a rising global tension with Russia and China, Japan is warning that it may have to respond by changing its constitution and looking at a military buildup. So Japan warns of escalating national security threats stemming from Russia's war on Ukraine and China's tension with Taiwan in its annual defense paper. The annual defense paper, approved by the Prime Minister of Japan, highlights the need for Japan's military buildup to address security concerns in order to gain public support for a stronger military and an increased budget. That's a complete sea change right now in the modern Japan, because they have been content to be a purely defensive force in the wake of World War II. And yet Tokyo, it says, is also concerned about China's relentless unilateral attempts to change the status quo by coercion in the East China Sea. And so they're looking at a Japanese military buildup and changing the way they do things, basically having to amend their constitution, if I understand this correctly. China rising. Talk about it more when we get back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. We'll be right back. Turn it up. We are back. Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Here, 4:34 p.m. It is go home time. Some of y'all are like in go home mode. You got the keys in the hand. You may already be in the car, and I get it. It's go home mode on Hump Day right now. So listen, just be careful out there on the roads. And you may be thinking, what am I doing for dinner? What am I doing? Or maybe this. Maybe how about in the morning? I am so tired of getting the biscuit in the drive-through. Same old, same old. Well, how about this? Just Love Coffee Cafe. 2 locations in our listening area. One on Hughes Road out in Madison. The other on South Memorial Parkway in Huntsville. Just Love Coffee Cafe. They've got amazing breakfasts. They got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But if you're coming in the morning for work, you might want to stop in, get you a omelet, get you an amazing biscuit, get you some waffles. I'm just saying, or get that super cappuccino to go, or just a cup of freshly ground, black coffee. Yeah, Just Love Coffee Cafe. The food's amazing. The atmosphere is great. The service is good. 2 locations, Hughes Road in Madison, and one on South Memorial Parkway in Huntsville. All right. Listen, we're in number 2 of the Triple Dipper, unless I do have a caller right there. I think I have a caller. You good to go? We are? All right. I'll tell you what. Let's do it right quick before I get going again. Cliff from Huntsville. Hey, Cliff. Phil Williams on Rightside. How are you today?
Hey, Phil, how you doing?
I'm good, sir.
I have an answer. You said you were surprised that you had so many podcast listeners in California.
Yeah.
I can tell you why.
All right, go ahead.
You know what team has the most World Series wins?
Go ahead.
The Yankees.
The Yankees.
You know who has the most World Series losses?
The Angels.
Also the Yankees.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, do you know what state gave Biden the most votes?
I'm going to say either New York or California.
California. You know what state gave Trump the most votes?
Just go with me, man. We're playing 20 questions. What you got?
Also California.
Okay.
Trump got more votes in California than any other state. Anyway.
Oh, I get your point. So you're saying there's a whole lot of folks out there, and I do get it. I've had friends. I used to live in California. I have friends. Northern California, especially, is far different than like San Francisco and the lower tier. But you're right, and I love having these folks tune in from California. Are you from California originally, Cliff?
No, I'm from Florence, Alabama.
All right, right here in home country. All right, well, Cliff, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate you, and I think you're probably right. All right, hey, listen, what he's talking about there, folks. I talked about the podcast earlier. We have you can get our show. If you listen to it live, that's cool. If you watch it on YouTube live streaming, where I'm sitting here and staring into the camera while I talk, that's cool. But you can also podcast the show, and I talked about the fact that we're over 65,000 downloads now, and our second biggest audience for months has been in California. Hundreds of people in California that download the show. Very cool. Love that. Love you, California. All right, going back to the Triple Dipper. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. I don't think we're going to make number 3. But no, Boomer's shaking his head. Ain't going to happen. But yeah, number 2 on the Triple Dipper, China rising. All right, I'm dealing with foreign policy right now. China rising. China, the near-peer adversary, the biggest threat in the world to our national security. And by the way, don't put anything past them. China plays what they often refer to as the long game. There are times when, I hate to say it, but there's times when, like the Biden administration is playing checkers, and I swear China's playing chess. And I hate to say that, but that's the way it feels. Because China is willing to be insidious. They're doing small things along the way, trying to, and we do too. I mean, we have espionage. We have intelligence capabilities. We have foreign policy initiatives. We have things that happen around the world. We work in neighboring countries to try and gain allegiances in that part of the world, certainly. But something about the way China approaches it just feels insidious. And story here off of VOA News, dated July 7th. Had you even heard the story? I haven't heard the story. I had not heard the story at all. Homeland Security agents, that's our Homeland Security. Homeland Security agents indicted in alleged Chinese effort to spy in the U.S. These are Department of Homeland Security employees who were indicted helping China to conspiring with China to discredit pro-democracy Chinese dissidents living in the United States. Yeah, I kid you not. Boomer's giving me the look. I kid you not. A federal grand jury, it says, has indicted a current U.S. Department of Homeland Security agent and a former agent in connection with an alleged Chinese government-sponsored scheme to stalk, harass, and spy on U.S.-based Chinese critics of Beijing, the Justice Department said Thursday. So it's an official release from the Justice Department that the indictment has been handed down by a federal grand jury. One guy named Craig Miller, a 15-year DHS employee, and another guy named Derek Taylor, who retired from the DHS, now working as a private investigator. They are accused of accessing and providing that information about Chinese activists from a restricted government database to two other individuals who then use the records to target the victims. In other words, DHS folks have data on people, and they gave it to the Chinese government to assist them in harassing these folks. It says the aim of the conspiracy was to discredit the pro-democracy Chinese dissidents living in New York City, San Francisco, and Indiana by spreading derogatory information about them. So basically what they did was they attacked their character. They doxed them. This was an official doxing by the Chinese government with assistance from DHS agents who are now under indictment for conspiring with a foreign government. That's awful, but that's China. That's what they do. How about this one? Story here from 1819 News. My friends at 1819, this one written by Jeff Poor, my buddy who's often on the show with us here. I'm on his show, he's on mine. This is dated today. U.S. Representatives Rogers, Brooks, and Adderholt. That's our Congressman Rogers, Congressman Brooks, and Congressman Robert Adderholt. Pressed the Defense Secretary Austin on Communist China's efforts to infiltrate U.S. colleges. If you've not heard about this, I have focused on this in the past on my show. They call them Confucius Institutes. That's the official name. Confucius Institutes. What that is a Chinese-funded program of pro-China studies at U.S. colleges. There are two known in Alabama, one at Troy University and one at Alabama A&M in Huntsville. And what's interesting to me is the Young Republican Federation of Alabama made this one of their pet projects. They wanted to see these Confucius Institutes gone. And so they have been making it a true project of their own. And I would dare say that Congressmen Adderholt, Brooks, and Rogers probably learned about these from the efforts of the Young Republicans here in Alabama. Nonetheless, these three congressmen sent a letter to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin this week asking why federal funds are still going to schools with alleged connections to the Communist Chinese government. And another article sitting here by Fox News titled, dated today also, titled, China's Return to College Campuses. Communist-backed Confucius Institutes are renewing their bid to shape American minds. That's the point. That's the point. China's not just conducting espionage. They're trying to change their image in the eyes of the American public so that when things are said about them, oh, it's China. I mean, I went to a class sponsored by the Chinese government, and I learned all kinds of neat things about China. They're not bad. Communism is not is right. They're not persecuting the Uyghurs. They're not building their own islands in the South China Sea to expand their territorial waters. They're not doing that. That's silly. Who would say that about China? Well, that's what Confucius Institutes are for, to help shape the minds of young skulls full of mush who know no better by providing studies that the Chinese government has pre-approved. Alabama A&M and Troy University both have them. Both have been asked to shut them down. A&M says they were shutting theirs down. There's no evidence they ever did. I don't know the answer to that. If someone knows, I'd love to hear it. But yeah, this is big doings, and it's not good. And so to have the Chinese government funding these opportunities is an insidious means by which China can rise in the minds of the people. So it's not just China rising on the world stage. It's China rising in the minds of Americans who become blind to the fact that what is happening is a complete co-opting of the narrative because China plays the long game. How about this? Story on the Daily Mail, dated last week, July 20th. China spent $6.1 billion on U.S. properties last year, more than any other country. And 31% of the homes Chinese buyers purchased were in California, with Florida the most popular state for foreign buyers overall. China spent more than $6 billion on U.S. property. The Chinese were the biggest buyers in the U.S., surpassing Canada's $5.4 billion. Chinese buyers like California, like I said, 31% of the purchases were in the Golden State. There were other governments and international, international purchases from other countries. But what's disturbing is when you see China doing this. Most recently, I'm trying to think of the name of the Air Force base in North Dakota, where we base a lot of our drone activity out of. I'll think of it in a minute. But China's bought up a huge tract of land, almost adjacent to that Air Force base. Tell me that's not concerning. Why in the world would they feel the need to place themselves right next to one of our major classified Air Force bases? Well, when they're already buying up land left and right, no one pays attention. Well, this one did catch somebody's attention finally, and a huge tract of land purchased by the Chinese government, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that bears watching. China rising. That's where we are. All right, folks, listen, we're going to take a break right now. We'll take this last break. We'll come back. If you want to call in for the show is over, you're welcome to it. 833-68-RIGHT. That's this number for Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, just plain right. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Covering all of North Alabama. Got a caller who held on during the break, so let me just grab that before I go any further. Lewis from Muscle Shoals. Lewis, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
So, like, I'm 53 years old, right?
All right.
20 years ago, China wasn't anything but rice farmers, right? And most of us out here in the field understand this. China grew when the Clintons got in office, and most of us understand how they did it. And people need to wake up. China has robbed America blind, and they're going to keep doing it until we wake up and realize that China's not our friend. They're not going to be our friend. They're a communist country. They're a communist country, just like Russia, and China and Russia are playing on the same team. And I don't know if you've ever looked at the CCP, but if you look at the CCP, I don't see anybody look like me or you in the CCP. And this deal that the United States has cut with China behind the scenes, people need to wake up because there ain't anybody that looks like me or you in their government.
I don't know what the mirror you part is, but I agree with you that China has been robbing us blind. They're one of the worst purveyors of technology theft and corporate theft. I mean, their spying is not just for government or military. Their spying is also for what they can get out of our technology. That's for sure.
That's exactly right. Their aircraft carriers and jets look a whole lot like ours, don't they?
Kind of crazy the way that works out. Hey, Lewis, thanks so much for the call, man.
Absolutely.
All right, man. You have a great day. All right, Lewis from Muscle Shoals. Appreciate that. Hey, folks, you want to call in? I got time for maybe one or two more. You're welcome to it. Phone number here, the new phone number, 833-68-RIGHT. I got to tell you, though, real quick before I go any further, we had some great news yesterday, and I'll call out the good stuff when I see it. Well, the good stuff right now for Alabama was that we just hit a record unemployment rate, low unemployment rate, 2.7%. That's awesome. That means that literally we're actually at what they would call full employment. Because if you are below 4%, that means that pretty much everybody who's looking for a job has found one. But it's not entirely true. There are still people looking for that job, that better job, that career opportunity, that enhancement, or they're moving. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, ZLA Solutions, they've been with us since this show started. ZLA Solutions is one of the best out there of matching jobs with people. If you're an employer, you need to fill out the ranks of your workforce. They can do all that with you. They can do all the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing, all of it. If you're an employee looking to find that job just for you, go to their website, zlausa.com. They've got these jobs posted all over North Alabama right now, and they are good at what they do. It can be direct hire, it can be temp, it can be, all kinds of ways they can work this for you. But I'm just saying, blue collar, white collar, no collar, it don't matter. ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. They can literally connect you to the job that you need. Check them out. Tell them you heard about it on the Rightside Radio. I'd appreciate it. All right, listen, I'm about to take another call right now. Boomer, you good with that one? Just give me the thumbs up if you are.
We're not going to take the call. She didn't want to come on, but she was talking about, she just wanted to emphasize about Chinese buying up land, and then also wanted us to know about the largest pork distribution company. She believes China owns it. I would need to look up and see the company name. But
really? Here in the United States?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's, that's interesting. Yeah, you hate it when you find out that you're dependent upon countries that don't like you, or that want to supplant you. And that's where we are. In fact, one of the things that's happening right now, and I'm not as in tune with it as I wish I was, but a story on National Review caught my eye this morning, talking about China rising. Story is a headline dated 2 days ago. Semiconductor bill leaves the U.S. at a disadvantage against China. So there has been a package under negotiation in the U.S. Senate now for quite some time, and it would have put China back on its heels. But at the last minute, apparently, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer removed language that would have protected America, if you get down to it, by subsidies. Or by subsidizing semiconductor manufacturing. I'm not for government subsidies. I'm not for corporate welfare. But what I'm not for at all, though, is the fact that we rely upon China for so much of our computer microchip and semiconductor technology. because it's manufactured over there. The supply chain has totally disrupted. I mean, right now you've got literally auto manufacturers in the U.S. that are having to remove certain amenities from the cars they're building because they can't get the chips in from China because the supply chain was so jacked up. Well, why would China help us? And by the way, those microchips, they are in almost everything that we do these days. I don't think we have any military technology that relies upon Chinese-produced microchips and semiconductors. I hope not. But the reality is this. We've got to get away from being dependent upon hostile foreign nations, especially near-peer adversaries who have not got our best interest at heart. This goes back to being energy independent. This goes back to having, trade at a level that puts the United States in the driver's seat. This is about keeping the dollar solvent on the international stage. All of this is about keeping the United States. It's why is it so wrong to say America first? Well, apparently liberal progressives believe, well, when you do that, it's so imperialistic. It's so isolationist. How about no? It's called taking care of us before you take care of them. Well, right now, we rely upon a great deal that comes from China because we've allowed it to go down that road. They offshored so much of our technology development. They offshored. I mean, we're becoming completely reliant upon allegedly going towards electric vehicles, and yet where do we wind up getting the majority of the componentry to build the batteries for these, electric vehicles? China. That's the way it happens. So all said and done, folks, we got plenty to be concerned about with China. We cannot take our eyes off the ball because China is rising. And the Biden administration has got to get their act together. They've got to get a cohesive foreign policy going. I was pleased to hear General Keane earlier in my segment here say that there are some things they're doing right, but that there's so much more that needs to be done. And I don't disagree. I mean, right now we are looking at literally China, the near-peer adversary, playing the long game and putting us in a position where we have to be concerned. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. All right, what a day. What a day, Boomer. All right, listen, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. You guys have an amazing night. Coming up next, you got the great one, Mark Levin. Show's back here tomorrow at 2. We'll see you then.